This camera sucks. You can barely see my hand. It's so dark and grainy and like blurry looking. I'm spoiled with modern phones. The cameras on modern phones are so much better. If I was using my main phone camera, you could see everything almost like it was daytime. But the only time you can see anything with this dinky old thing is if I'm right underneath a light. It does have a flash on it, but I don't feel like blinding myself. I just want to remind you with this video how quickly and drastically technology has changed over the years. This that I'm recording with is an iPhone 5 camera. And this is the quality. The iPhone 5 came out in like 2012. I think it came out in the end of 2012. I don't remember. Didn't the iPhone 5 come out in like September of 2012? I can't remember all these details. But this is basically the kind of quality that you had on phones back in 2012. I figured I'd make this video just as like a 10-year anniversary because that's basically how old this camera is. So I'm going to make a 10-year anniversary video to appreciate how drastically technology has improved over the past 10 years. Starting with just the camera quality. Huge difference. So now you can see everything, sort of. It still looks pretty dark and blurry looking, like there's no stabilization at all. So it just looks blurry. Every time I turn, you can see like a blur. It just looks blurry. Oh. So here's this 15-minute video admiring technology and how quickly that we're improving it year after year. Can't wait until the end of this year. iPhone 14 Pro! iPhone 14 Pro! Finally, they're gonna get rid of the notch on the iPhone 14 Pro. And that's when I'm gonna get another iPhone. I'm gonna get I don't know if I want to get the iPhone 14 Pro or the 14 Pro Max. I mean, I like having the biggest possible screen because I play a lot of video games and I watch a lot of videos, I edit a lot of videos, I use my phone for pretty much everything other than the phone. It's kind of weird. That's why I like to have the biggest possible screen on my phone. Because I do pretty much everything but texting and calling. I don't like texting and calling. If it wasn't for voice to text, I probably wouldn't text at all. Or I wouldn't say more than 1 or 2 words if I have to text. So I'm so grateful for voice to text, even though voice to text is so stupid. Like half the time, it puts the right words. The other half the time, it just goes full fucktard and it doesn't put anything right. And it's not like I talk any different. Like, the part it annoys me the most when, like, I've said the same words like a million times and it still can't get them right. It doesn't matter how loud and clear I talk directly into the damn thing. It either decides that it's going to put the right word or it's going to say, fuck you, I'm just going to be retarded and just put something else that's nowhere close to the words I was trying to say. I feel like Google's voice to text has been a bit more accurate more often compared to on Apple's voice to text. And I think it's mostly a server side problem, because I noticed, like, depending on your internet connection and like how clogged up their servers are at the time, because I've noticed that voice to text, and this applies on both Google's voice to text and the iPhone's voice to text. They're both, like, occasionally when I try to use it, like, sometimes it'll start up right away and start putting words right away, right as I start talking. But then there's other times where I'll try to turn on the Google voice to text, and there are times where it takes several seconds before it even turns on. But then there's other times where it turns on, like, immediately. Then there's other times where it turns on and then I start saying words and it takes several seconds until it starts putting anything, and then half the time when it does that, it just completely screws everything up and puts all the wrong words that I wasn't trying to say. Or it doesn't do anything at all. Like, that's the part that annoys me the most, is when it says voice to text is ready, like, it's ready, it's initialized, and I'm just talking to myself because I'm trying to say a word, I'm trying to say a simple sentence, and it's not doing anything, and then the voice to text just turns off after like 5 seconds. I'm like, are you fucking serious? So stupid. But the times where the voice to text does actually work, and it's reliable and it's accurate, it makes it worth the headache that it usually gives me the other half the time. So that's why, as annoying as it is, I still prefer it over regular texting and tapping on the screen and typing individual letters. I still feel like it's quicker and just better overall, because typing individual letters over and over and over, unless I'm just trying to look up a video on YouTube, it's just, I don't like it. I've never been into texting. I treat smartphones like pocket computers. I play so many games on them. I make so many stupid videos. I usually edit a lot of the videos directly on the phone. That's why I like these phones so much, and I'm anticipating the iPhone 14 Pro. I really hope that they get rid of the notch and they have a hole punch. Everyone is talking about it. Everyone is talking about it. Farts. They're finally getting rid of the notch on the iPhone 14 Pro. I mean, they're probably still going to have the stupid notch, the slightly shorter notch that we already have on the 13 phones, but they're still going to have that notch on the standard 14s. Why? Seriously, why? But I guess they're going to take a hit. It's kind of ironic. They're going to take a hit to try to further distinguish the standard 14 from the 14 Pro. Because it does make sense, even though at the same time it seems kind of stupid. Like, why wouldn't you want to just have the new hole punch design on the entire lineup of iPhone 14s? Like, why would you want to continue to have that dated looking notch, very dated looking notch? Pretty much no other phones ever use a notch like that. It's all hole punch cutouts, and some phones are even starting to utilize the first generation of under-display camera technology. I think we're already moving to the second generation of under-display camera technology. It's still not obviously as good as the standard cameras, because when you're covering up the sensor with the screen, it doesn't really matter what you do. Like, right now the technology just isn't there yet, so it's obviously gonna blur out the quality and make it look kind of washed out. Like, it looks good, especially knowing that under-display camera technology is still really new. So far, like, the first and second generation of this new under-display camera technology looks pretty good, but it just isn't there. It's just not there yet. Like, they've been putting that on a couple flagship phones, like the Samsung Galaxy Note 3, I think. That has an under-display camera. I think that's using the second generation technology. I don't know, but the quality is kind of average. I don't think it's going to be as good as regular cameras that we have right now for probably at least another 2 or 3 years. That's just my prediction. But around that time, this under-display camera technology is going to start becoming more common across all of these other ambitious phone makers anyway. So we're going to be seeing tons and tons of phones probably more like mid-range phones at first, like, because there's a lot more playroom. There's a lot more room to play around with those mid-range phones. That's why they tend to experiment more and put some of those gimmicky features that don't always really take off in popularity, because they just have more room to mess around with the mid-range phones. It's a lot less of a risk to invest in compared to super expensive flagship phones. The flagship phones are basically like, they put most of the features that have been around for a long time, and they've already ironed out all the bugs, and the quality is up to par. That's kind of why the iPhones are so late to the party all the time, because they like to wait until the technology has been around for such a long time, to the point of where they can just flawlessly merge it into the software and just make it like an all-in-one experience, just super smooth and simple, and like no serious problems. The quality is top-notch. But the bad part is you have to wait several years to get this kind of technology on an iPhone. That's the only thing I don't really like about the iPhones. But here's the thing, like, we see dozens of new Android phones every year. But as far as new iPhones are concerned, we typically only see 3 or 4 new iPhones. Or lately in the latest lineups, we see 4 new iPhones. The iPhone mini, the standard iPhone, and then 2 Pro iPhones, even though like everyone is saying that they're getting rid of the mini. So when the 14s come out, apparently there's just going to be the standard iPhone 14, and then the 14 Max, and then the 14 Pro, and the 14 Pro Max. It seems like a bit more of a simplified lineup, but there is still a market out there. A lot of people like to have smaller phones that you can use one-handed easily. All of these phones are massive. They're just downright gigantic. Not everyone likes to have a small tablet in their pocket all the time, like you can barely lift your leg up to put it on a chair to tie your shoe without feeling like your phone is gonna rip a hole in your pants. But that's just the default. Like, apparently a lot of people like having giant screens, like having phones with giant screens. So they're appealing to the mass market. That's obviously just smart business strategy. When you're in business, you go with whatever's the most popular. Personally, I probably would never get an iPhone mini, because like it still has a pretty big screen size. I think it's 5.4 inches. That's like nearly the same size that the Plus iPhones were back when they called them the iPhone Plus, like the iPhone 6 Plus, iPhone 7 Plus, iPhone 8 Plus. Those were all 5.5 inch screens. So that's still a pretty decent screen, because back then those Plus iPhones were considered phablet sized phones too, even though the screen size was not nearly as big as all the screens now. It's because back then the iPhone still had that giant border on the top and bottom. Now the new designs, other than the notch of course, the new designs are so much better, because there's no giant chin on the bottom. Those giant bezels on the top and bottom are gone. I'm so glad. But at what cost? Having that stupid notch cut out? I guess they'd rather have that instead of have one slim, consistent bezel on the top, so you can have a full status bar. You can't even see your battery percentage on the iPhones because of that dumb notch. And that's why I never bothered getting the 13s, because it doesn't matter if they shrunk the notch a tiny bit. Like the part that annoyed me the most is how there's plenty of room now with the slimmer notch. There's plenty of room on the status bar to put the battery percentage back up there, but no, they're just gonna spread the icons out a little more to make it not look stupid, but you still can have the battery percentage even though there's plenty of room. And you start making sense.